And of course, there is a breaking news item, a lot of debate, obviously, this weekend over the tariffs, because as the tariffs went in place, we saw a pretty volatile economy. We saw a pretty volatile stock market. But Will, the breaking news item that's coming out is about these 50 countries, more than 50 countries, who have said, hey, we've already at least given a call to the White House.
That's right. More than 50 countries have approached the administration about lowering their non-tariff trade barriers. So that's even just being able to do business in the country, lowering their tariffs, or stopping currency manipulation. This is coming from the Treasury Secretary. And we also know that the European Union, late last night, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that they are seeking to avoid a back and forth trade war, that they are offering 0 for 0 tariffs on industrial goods.
This is the EU.
This is the European Union, which is actually...
As you said earlier to me in the meeting, I said, hey, so who is this saying this? Does this person have the influence, the control to actually say this? And the answer to that is yes.
Right. It is the president of the European Commission. So when you look at this, and you also know the history of President Trump trying to make a deal, get people to the negotiating table, that is working. Regardless of what anyone is telling you about how it's going to send America into a death spiral of economic doldrums.
Look, it wasn't a good weekend.
It was not. But I would at least say the bringing people to the table to negotiate is working.
We're only a couple days in. Let's see what happens when you have people like the European Union coming out and saying, hey, on industrial goods, we're thinking 0%. And if you're thinking 0 and you're thinking 0, all of a sudden you have a free trade agreement with really one of the top areas you need to. Now we got to get to China. We got to get to Asia in general, Vietnam, a lot of these countries. But it's still a massive move forward. So remember, as we've always said, and look, I'm not here just as an apologist for President Trump and his plans, because a lot of times, look, as everyone has differences of opinion. And I think this one's okay to have a difference of opinion. But what I've said is that this was going to be a negotiation tactic. This wasn't just a blanket, here are the tariffs, nothing's ever going to change. It was going to be something that brought people to the table, and 50 countries have already shown up.
That's right. And one thing that I think with this whole situation, I was asked by a family member, what do you think of the tariffs over the weekend? With the whole situation, the world is on fire, freaking out about this. And I, as a traditional conservative, don't typically think towards tariff policy. Like, the conservatives traditionally are more free trade. But when you have a situation of what's been going on, one, we didn't have free trade because we just weren't putting tariffs on.
We were
Everyone else was. And when you get to a situation where they start talking about, it could cost $60,000 to buy an iPhone if it was exclusively manufactured here. These absurd things where you're like, well, that's part of the problem. That is part of the America last foreign policy and economic policy that we have seen for decades from both parties, where our manufacturing base isn't here. We are completely reliant on foreign nations to get our most basic things and to have our most basic needs filled. That's not okay. That is actually a national security problem. So as someone who is tariff averse in my political or economic philosophy, I understand the goal here. And I think, to some degree, that goal of getting people to the table to try to fix this problem is the positive best outcome. Now, when you have an entrenched economic policy like we've had, there is no way that you can change course without it being disruptive, a little scary. Right.
You said the world's on fire, which is the way I like it because I never get bored.
That's right. But what you also have to remember is that there are thousands of people right now that are making tons and tons of money off the stock market panic, that are actually fueling the drop in prices because of the way options market work. Very little risk to them to sell put options to make large profits off of this. So don't think that it's just, all these people are losing money. Most people that would be losing equity value are people that are not the big Wall Street types on a panic like this. I think that the panic will be short run in the market because I think it will start to play out and it will level off. But I also think there are other positive economic factors, and we'll play the Treasury Secretary in a moment, that can be seen that the media is not telling you about.
And that's the thing, is that the media controls the narrative. Social media controls the narrative. All your favorite liberal, influencers are going to share what they think right now, because this is a moment of what you'd say, quote unquote, weakness, as the economy did take a hit. Let's not pretend it didn't. But as Will said, you're also giving us 2 days. You haven't had it play out. You have people who are in control of that narrative that don't necessarily want it to be successful in general. So what do you have to do? You have to stay tuned to places like us here at the ACLJ, us here on the Seculo Show. Maybe you're watching Salem News Channel. Maybe you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, finding those alternative media options, because we are not going to force feed you any sort of fake. This is the truth. We're telling you the truth. That's what we always do here at the ACLJ. That's what we always do here on Seculo, even if you don't like to hear it. And like I said, it is okay to look at this and say, man, I've got some concerns. I'm worried about the economy. That is okay. But that is why we'll come in, and we're not just going to gloss over that and say everything is fine. We're going to tell you what we think and what some of the leading experts also believe. And as Will said, there's a lot of people still making money. There's a lot of other ways people are going to be making money. As I said, we've seen gas prices drop. What affects the average American more? The stock market dropping or gas prices dropping? I think that's a pretty simple answer.
Whenever you see the market going down quickly, as we saw for 2 days last week, that is kind of the most readily available economic indicator people look to. Even if they're not directly connected to it, maybe they have retirement that's in 401ks, but that's what you kind of think of as the number. One, I think it was a very quick sell-off. There was more sell-off today. It went back up. It's bouncing around. We'll see how that plays out. But I do also think that, and I want to play the Treasury Secretary's comment about the oil prices and things of that nature. Now, also, I can't speak to every location in the country, every gas station in the country where the prices are. Also,
that's not what we're talking about necessarily.
When you're seeing the cost of oil drop,
right.
That then does translate not necessarily that moment, but to lower gas prices on the whole. If you are nearing a retirement age and you're looking, okay, we've got this drop right now, how does it look a week, 6 weeks, a month from now, or even a year from now? I think that those aren't necessarily unfounded fears. That is a situation where you have to look at and figure out where the economy is going. When you see people coming to the table, that is where you start to think this could potentially be a short-lived panic, as people on Wall Street love to do, and that it's not necessarily a long-term concern. But it's also very early. We're a couple days into this. But let's play what the Treasury Secretary had to say. This is bite one, both talking about tariffs from the first Trump administration, as well as some other data points on pricing. Let's go ahead and run that.
Kristen, what I like is data. And if we look at data from President Trump's first term, and there's a big study that just came out from a group of economists, mostly at MIT, that showed that a 20% tariff on China led to a 0.7% tax or price level increase over 4 years. I think that's pretty good. If we can take in 20% in tariffs and it's a 0.7% increase, and Kristen, the little publicized story this week, everyone wants to look at the stock market going down. You know what else went down? Oil prices went down almost 15% in 2 days, which impacts working Americans much more than the stock market does. Interest rates hit their low for the year, so I'm expecting the mortgage applications to pick up.
Okay, and that is the Secretary of Treasury. I want to make sure people know
That's right. Yeah, Scott Bessent. And what he's pointing out there is that other numbers, such as the price for a barrel of oil, has gone down almost 15%, which will translate into lower gas prices, which not only affect you at the pump, but also the cost of your goods as they're being transported across the country, because that fuel cost is baked into the price. Also, the interest rates. Everyone in many areas across the country have been priced out of housing, not just because of the prices going up, but because of during the early 2020s, you were at 2%, 2.25%, 3% interest rate, up to 7.5% under the Biden administration. That prices you out of housing really fast.
Personally, my house has doubled in value over the last decade, but we cannot move.
Right.
We cannot afford to move because the interest rates are so high that our payment would be like, 10 times. I mean, I'm not even joking, like 10 times what we're paying right now. But you know what? Good for Secretary Bassett. It's like all he's saying is it'll work out just fine. All we need is just a little patience. We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.